G'day. Chris F.V. Jackson here. This morning, I got rather annoyed. And from 60 Minutes from Australia, climate change causes islands to disappear. Right. So with my alternate ego, Carl Hooper, welcome to 6 Minutes with me. Right, so they're saying that climate change is causing islands to disappear. Now this really annoys me because it's very selective about where they want to film, who they want to film, and why to push the agenda. Okay? So they don't go to the North Pole or the Northern Islands to see where these Inuits have been living next to the shore for centuries. But I'm just going to play this on so you can look. I'm rather perturbed by this. It's about time somebody stood up and accounted for what these people are saying. Scientists. Yeah, okay. Let's see what they say.
The northwestern end of the Solomon Islands is one of the most stunning and remote parts of the Pacific Ocean.
Yes.
But its isolation offers little protection.
I'd have to argue with that. I think its isolation is the fact that it's protected.
The world is catching up with this place very fast, and in effect, drowning it.
In effect, drowning it. Right? I mean, look, there's trees. They're showing tree stumps in water, as if the trees grew there before the water. This is probably a natural habitat for this type of tree. Look at the swamps in the in the south. You know, in all the bios and stuff. You know, the swamplands with the trees in America. This is probably the same sort of species of tree, or make or model, whatever.
You think the whole island will eventually disappear?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, you don't know if that was the question that was asked her. He could have said to her, you know, are you feeling okay? Do you like living here? Cut, edit. Do you think the island will disappear? Yeah. We don't know, do we? I mean, look, they show this picture here of this little thing with stuff leaching into the water. I mean, it looks like they've crammed everything in, but this is probably how this island was populated, you know? There's probably more around here, but they don't show it. But look, this was once a thriving community. There's no evidence around here where people have been living before. But no, look, this island's going to disappear, people. Watch out, 3.5 millimeters coming.
This island will be disappeared.
Climate change is not an abstract notion for these islands.
These houses are really falling into the ocean, aren't they?
Yeah. These houses will...
Now, alright, nothing against these people. I mean, they're probably not the world's most rich people or come from an economy that's thriving. I mean, they live in paradise, for heaven's sake. These people have built houses on stilts for years, centuries, probably before we even knew they existed, right? Why is that? It's because potentially when you get a bit of a storm or whatever, the water rushes up and it goes under the house as opposed to washing the house away, so they build it on stilts. So you could imagine, like, say, oh yeah, we're going to do a documentary, we want this, we want that, chuck them a few quid, eh? That sounds awful, but you know, that's probably the truth. Well, as far as I see it, anyway. I'm getting rather animated, you can tell. I'm just annoyed by this. This whole concept of them pushing this video has had 250,000 views with nearly 1 million subscribers with 3,000 people likes. So,
falling to the ocean.
Or the people who call them home.
or
Whilst the global average sea level rise rates are running at about 3.5 millimetres a year.
3.5 millimeters a year. There you go. Well, the world average rates rise at about 3.5 millimeters a year. And what about elsewhere? 3.5 millimeters, is that globally? No, probably not. See what he says.
Here in the Solomons, the last 2 decades have seen 3 times that rate. So between 7 and 10 millimetres a year.
So this is way above the world average.
That's right.
So, way above the world average. So, it seems to be very selective as to where the sea level rises. Why is that? Could it not be the land that's sinking, not sea level rising? I don't know.
It gives us a unique opportunity to provide this sort of looking glass into the future of how we expect.
A looking glass into the future. That is, that's a perception of what they think is going to happen based on what they're saying is happening now by probably erroneous data and not real scientific data.
The rest of the world to experience sea level rise rates towards the end of this century.
Oh, so now everyone else is going to get it now then as well. It's just that the Solomon Islands are experiencing the worst at the moment, and the rest of it's to follow. I've lived by the sea all my life, all right, and no matter where I go, it's always the same. It's always the same. Never changes one bit.
39-year-old Dr. Simon Albert first came to the Solomon Islands as a young PhD student from the University of Queensland to study the impact of logging runoff on coral reefs. Then he started to hear stories of islands that had simply vanished off the map.
Stories. These are stories. Folklore, stories. Stories from whom? But they're stories, people. Not chronicled historic events, but stories.
An elderly gentleman on the boat with us
An elderly gentleman on the boat. Right, okay. His name, perhaps?
started explaining that there were these islands that he used to camp on as a child, and we were just out in the middle of the ocean looking at a coral reef with no island in sight.
The Battle of the Panama Canal in the heart of the Solomon Islands was a critical turning point in World War II for the Allies.
We surprised the Jap, and the landings were easy.
Simon learnt there was an archive of thousands of wartime surveillance photos in the present-day capital of Honiara, and
Okay.
decided to investigate.
Were they kept well? Were they all catalogued?
No, archive is a very generous term. I mean, we're talking about a room which is fundamentally a dumping ground of old, mouldy, rat-eating photographs in no particular order. So it's
But what we'll do is we'll take the photographs and say where this is, and say it's not there anymore. So it's not been archived and listed as such. It's in a mouldy old room. So again, you're going to use the information in the photographs to suit what you actually want to broadcast. Perhaps.
an enormous job to start sifting through those systematically and trying to put those trends together.
Simon
bum,
focused his
bum,
research
bum, bum, bum,
on a
bum,
group of
bum,
islands
bum,
in the
bum,
northwest of the Solomons, just off Santa Isabel. It's where we're motoring now, towards the island of Sogomo, or what's left of it.
Or what's left of it.
We were once on an island here, and now we're driving a boat across it. It's just mind-blowing, really. And if it wasn't for that old imagery, we'd have no idea that this, in fact, was a quite intact, stable island.
Well, show us the imagery then. Make the comparison. Show it to us. Just don't go on a boat and say you're riding over it. That has no proof whatsoever. Please.
By matching the old against the new, Simon was able to illustrate just how much of this island is now underwater.
So where we are here now, Liam, was an intact island back in 2002, and since then, half of the island has been lost to sea level rise.
So it's only taken
Okay.
the last 6
Okay, so my basic understanding of geography, erosion, river development, spits, etc. So let's have a look. Let's just take this back one bit. All right, now we see this picture here. All right, so we see this picture here. Okay, now what you're not looking at is where this actually lies in the bigger picture of the sea flow and what have you. But if you look at the shape of this, if it was connected to a land and then blocking a part of water in it, it would be called an isthmus, right? Now, I used to live near an isthmus when I was a child, and that was called Chesil Beach. So you had a spit of land which came out, deposited sand, and it entrapped a body of water. That's where it's a famous beach. We all know it. I could bring it up here, but I'm not going to point it. But the point I'm making here is, if you look at the way that the sand here, obviously the land here is below the surface of the sea is a lot higher. So what's going to naturally happen is sand deposits are going to be built up, and the point where the land looks thinnest around here is probably the most. So you've got like a headland. It could be coming the other way. I don't know. But what's actually happened is you're getting more erosion at this point than not. So the spit is coming down this way. So eventually that small part of the land is going to be eroded away, and the sand is going to be taken off and then perhaps deposited at a deeper part of the ocean. So this part here is higher. So this to me looks like natural erosion, not about sea level rise. Okay. So, but they're actually changes to suit themselves.
In 2002, and since then, half of the island has
There you
been
go.
lost to sea level rise.
So it's only taken the last 16 and a bit years.
Yeah, that's right. But in fact, these trees are quite ancient trees. We've dated them to at least 250 years old. So these aren't just small little shrubs that have come and gone. These are large, stable trees that occupied this once enormous island.
So
You could probably see this the world all over with the natural land erosion, and then where land is being dumped. Why do you think they put groins, those wooden slots out on beaches? Is to actually capture the sand that's being dragged down the coastline, which wouldn't actually block a port. It was a simple method to do it. The Grimsby and Hull ports, a famous spit, it might be called Spit Head or something, where the land has naturally come down like this and created over hundreds of years or thousands of years a natural spit, and you'll see all these groins on beaches, which as the waves come down, as the sand, as it goes into deeper water and slows down, the sand tends to drop. So over hundreds of years, you don't want a port to be blocked by sand deposits, and then equally so, that sand has to come from somewhere. So it's been eroded away from somewhere else and deposited somewhere else. You can see that the world over. And this is probably no different to anything like that. I mean, you see an old tree here. Yes, it probably was on land at some point, but the natural erosion is taking effect.
So it's not part of a cycle or a trend.
No, this is a very distinct shift in what was a reasonably stable baseline to a really sudden, over the last 20 years, a sudden loss of the island.
The size of this tree.
Yeah.
Sogomo Island has lost over 110,000 square metres in just 2 decades. It's not your average sort of palm tree falling into the ocean.
That's right, and it's these ancient massive trees that provide that foundation, that strength.
Oh, so they're ancient massive trees. So now they're dead. So once where it stood these ancient massive trees. Yeah, very. Just look at the words. I'm getting sick of this now. I've had enough. I'm only 4 minutes into it. And it's only 17 minutes long. This. I don't know. I feel compelled to do this, but I'm just getting sick of it now. Really, really sick of it.
Really hold on to the islands and stabilise the islands. So once these go, it really makes the island a lot more vulnerable to loss.
Hard to believe, but as
Yes.
recently as 20 years ago, I would have been walking in the middle of this island's rainforest. This beautiful old casuarina was well and truly in the heart of it. But as you can see now, sadly, the ocean is lapping at its roots, and it will be most certainly the next to go under.
Steve and Dave use eToro to invest in the financial markets. Steve does research on global...
Sorry about that.
It's the same story at the nearby Heta Island.
Hit her up. Truth, mate.
Where we're walking now, this was Ireland. In fact, we had our lunch here about 18 months ago. These trees, as you can see around here, so it's quite dramatic.
18 months ago.
Yeah, lost about half its size in the last couple of decades. The high tide broke through the island about here, and once that tidal motion could move...
You got any pictures, mate?
through, it just slowly worked its way from both sides and took out the rest of the island.
There's probably nothing more natural than something like this happening. It's not because of sea level rises or climate change, people. I mean, come on. This is very selective. It's in your face. The whole thing's geared to push the message of climate change and what we're doing. Rubbish. Absolute rubbish. I'm not going to do this anymore. Listen to the music. Dum, 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 dum. And then
sea levels in the Solomon Islands have risen over 15 centimetres.
okay. So, but that looks to me as if I've got more land erosion here. Look, I can see some sort of runoff here from the sea, some sort of banking effect. This, don't forget, all this is sand that's underlaying here. This probably, that sand's come from somewhere else. Somewhere else has disappeared, and or sand disappeared from here, is going somewhere else.
Through climate change,
they'll probably bring in plastic in a minute as well.
And partly because of trade winds physically pushing water into this part of the Pacific.
And these are the rates that the entire globe is predicted to experience over the next century.
So what's happening here in the Solomons?
Well, oh, bugger. Well, we're not going to be around in the next century, are we? So, how are we going to know? I'm just going to whiz it forward a bit, see what he says.
So critical, and these people are literally facing it on a day-to-day basis.
Vegetation.
All those trees, all those ancient trees, these horrible people cut down, right, to make their houses and their livelihoods and make their boats so they can fish. It's probably helped to erode the islands.
Is one thing, but when you see that homes actually falling into the ocean, it's something else.
There's been dozens of houses lost here to sea level rise just in the last 10 years, really. And
in the last 10 years, just throw it out there, mate. Just throw it out there. What about storms?
And that causes an enormous impact on these people's livelihoods.
This is Beni Amino, part of the seaweed islands, the most vulnerable of the Solomons archipelago. There's almost 200 men, women and children who call this tiny plot of land home.
Home.
And for them, climate change is not an academic debate or a dinner party discussion. It's the reality of seeing their homes and livelihoods washed away.
I wonder if these people tend to be slightly nomadic over the centuries, you know, where they island hop, perhaps, you know, because of natural erosion. These people probably know far better, you know, than what you do, or you scientists.
And the bleak prospect of an uncertain future at best.
This house is the next to go.
This house is next to go.
Looks old.
This man owned this house, already go to the village.
He's had to leave.
Yeah, have to leave.
Ben Katua lives here with his wife and small son. Like everyone, they scratch out a meagre existence selling dried seaweed for about 70 cents a kilo. He's lived here 6 years, but questions how much longer they can last.
This house is falling to the ocean.
And where was the beach before? Whereabouts was the sand?
It's already there. Yeah? Just before this house, the beach there.
The beach was over here.
Yeah, it's over here.
Well, that pontoon looks like it's been there for years, doesn't it? You know? He's lived there for 6 years. I mean, it looks like the house is older than 6 years. Perhaps he just squatted in there or moved in because somebody left it. And then the island's been eroded and therefore they have to move. Because they don't look like sort of massively permanent buildings, do they? They're sort of built with the wood, driftwood perhaps, whatever. They don't need that much sort of protection, I guess, from cold and wind and rain. You know, just so long as the house is above any potential incoming rushes of water, so they don't get drenched or the house gets washed away. But in that sort of sunshine and salt and whatever, the wood would sort of would perish, you know, and a lot quicker than anything else. I mean, that pontoon looks as if it's been there for years.
Or down there.
And how long has it taken for the beach to come back here, for this house to almost disappear?
One.
Can you hear that?
Bullshit.
Nothing can truly survive in a palm oil plantation. It's barren.
Okay, sorry about that. Oh dear.
Waterfront real estate.
Oh dear.
New meaning out here.
Right, so again, look what we have here, okay? We have the water coming in here. Look at the way this is arching around here, alright? So as the higher sort of part of this spit, it's got that sort of flow to it, right? So the land is being eroded by the sea. It's not sea level rising, it's the way it's being eroded. I mean, I'd like to see the who's on this. I mean, yeah, you've got some flotsam and jetsam around there, but just take a look. It's a natural thing. If there was sea level rises, you wouldn't get this type of erosion, would you? You just go, boom, it's gone, and that's it. Whatever was down below would be down below. It's very, very
Rising
selective.
sea levels make survival more precarious by the day. The fact is, this village is one cyclone away from oblivion. Living with such uncertainty is the awful reality for women like Jean Taraka and Natalie Andrew.
I feel very sorry too about my island's getting small. I don't know where I'm gonna move on.
Ladies, you tell me. I mean, what's the future?
We don't think we have future, but we just fight for our own life. We don't know what is the future.
You don't think there is a future, Jean?
I don't think of the real future.
That's
Put words in her
By
mouth.
that, you think the whole island will eventually disappear?
Put words in her mouth.
Yeah.
Yes.
Without doing anything, this island will be disappeared.
And this has been your home?
Yes. I don't know where to move.
Cue sad music.
People that aren't asking a lot of planet Earth. You know, they've got a fairly small footprint on our planet. They're not asking much.
When we see these people hanging onto sand and trees and shrubs, it makes what we have
What?
insignificant, doesn't it? Or
Yeah.
It makes our problems insignificant.
Hanging on to trees and shrubs. What did these people do in the Pacific? Like, you know, in Fletcher Christian's time, they were still there, weren't they? You know, you people are evil.
Constantly in awe of these people that they're not jumping up and down and win.
Now imagine this guy, right? He's gone off and he's done his PhD and he's looked at logging effects in the Pacific. What a complete waste of time. I mean, what a waste of time. So what's his agenda? Excuse me. What a waste of time. If I spent my whole life detailing something, but then he must know. He must know. He's in the program, of course. Of course. I'm looking at it from a normal person, you know. If you could call me that.
And being victims. They're strong, proud people that have lived here for thousands of years.
Of course, it's not just people and islands at risk from rising sea levels.
Look at the bend.
It's also the wildlife.
Well, what's wrong with that? They've got more places to live. There's fish, haven't they? And swim and hunt. Let's see what they say about the wildlife.
Ironically, the future of a marine creature, such as the hawksbill turtle, is in jeopardy too.
Right.
Because the beaches they nest in are being washed away.
Well, they're always being washed away, mate. They just move.
Talked to the elders here, and they estimate the beaches were up to 100 metres wide through the 60s, 70s, and into the 80s.
They reckon, so they didn't actually measure it. You're very loosely throwing that out, you know. I mean, that's not very scientific, is it? Oh, they say it was, 60s, 70s, 80s. Oh, come on.
100 metres? And that's what led to this area being such a critical, it's one of the major hawksbill rookeries in the Western Pacific because of those wide beaches.
Simon, this is hardly 100 metres.
That's right. We've seen this quite dramatic recession down to the beach size of, more in the order of 10 to 15 metres now. So obviously the real estate, the habitat available for these turtles has decreased dramatically.
The nearby Arnavon Island Group is the first, and indeed only, national park in the Solomon Islands.
Okay, so cutting here, Francis, and...
Simon Albert has been working here documenting the beach loss with park rangers, like Francis Rutanas. Before it was a sanctuary, his people used to hunt the turtles here. Now, he's their #1 protector.
Okay, so it was dinner then, not the habitat perhaps. I was twofold really, the habitat and people hunting these creatures then, yeah, to survive and eat, you know.
And it's important for the rest of the world too, isn't it? For preserving species like the turtle.
Yeah.
I'm all for that.
We want for the world to know that the turtle is very important for us to look after it.
Yeah, so your success is our success.
Yeah. And as we all know that Hanon is one of the nesting ground for oxbill turtle, so it's a sad thing for the Hanon nesting beach gone.
Of the 33 islands Simon has studied, a third have either...
Oh, did he just say 33? Didn't he? Sorry. I couldn't help myself. Oh dear.
partially sunk or disappeared altogether.
Partially sunk. Did he just say partially sunk? Wasn't that what I was implying earlier? I don't know. Sad music.
He says if we continue to ignore this disturbing trend, then it's not just the Solomons, but the whole world.
Oh!
Deep water.
We need to start to take these climate pressures seriously. It's become so political and so divisive.
Exactly, political, mate.
You know,
it's not exactly scientific, is it?
we're smart enough. You know, as Australians, as global citizens, we've got a great, proud history of
global citizen
leadership in these issues. And for a range of reasons, climate change has really led us into a vicious cycle of blame and trying to pass the buck.
Well, when you're here in the Solomons, on an island that's
well, passing the buck comes down to the taxpayer, doesn't it? That's all that is.
disappearing, you can't pass the buck very well, can you?
Yeah, these people, they've got no one to pass it to.
Have they ever?
I think there's a little bit more we can do to try and help not only these people, but eventually ourselves.
Let's go back to that picture because look, where was it? This.
I think there's a little bit more we can do to try and help not only these people, but
Yep.
eventually ourselves.
Now look at that. Children playing in the sea, thumbs up, smiling, happy, in sunny weather. You know, I mean, they have a happy life. Their needs are very, very small. They're not in a rat race as such. I'm sure they look out for each other and other families and work together as a community. This is what human is. This is what being human is. They have no other agenda but to live a happy and fruitful life with the resources that's around them. And I'm sure that's what this community has been all about for centuries. So we come along and tell them different. Now, if you really want to help, you know, the environment sort of, you know, look at this, spend money on this then. Stop sending stuff up there which is no good to any one of these people. You tell them about exoplanets. Talk to these people about what the sun's supposed to be doing. Do you think they care? No. So now the Hoover's on. I think that's my cue to go. Cheers, people. Oh dear. Bye bye.